We want the Palestinians to live in peace and security as our neighbors. And unfortunately, they're being held hostage by these tyrannical terrorists. So by putting that sort of messaging, positive messaging out there, building the bridges towards peace, that's really the way to end the incitement.
You know, it's interesting that you said that, because several years ago on the show, when I was doing the show, maybe some of my camera people can remember, that I did a show with a Palestinian young man, Fatah, and I did one with an Israeli student. And they met on my show, and somehow the Israeli became pro-Palestinian and the Palestinian became pro-Israel. And I stopped in the middle of the show and I said, wait a minute, I'm confused. Now, who is the Israeli and who is the Palestinian? And after the show, they took their emails and they took each other's, and they became friends. And I could not believe what had happened because of the show.
Well, you know, the Israeli public opinion actually has a large segment that advocates for Palestinian rights. And the real shame, getting back to Michael Oren at UC Irvine and those students who disrupted his speech, if they'd actually sit and listen and have a conversation, they'd find that there are actually many Jewish and Israeli viewpoints that agree with them.
But then you have to get to the major point underlying all of it, and the question that continually comes up, whether it's political, cultural, or otherwise, is do they want peace or not? And that's such a loaded question, because it's not,
what is peace?
It's not just a rational, logical point of view. It stems from a tremendous amount of poverty. It stems from ignorance. It stems from lack of education and from very power-hungry regimes. And we've seen how
generations of incitement.
Generations of incitement, the squeaky wheel. You know.
I really think, though, that the extremists ruin it for everyone. I really think that the end of the line, like you said, those two people were sitting at the table. They exchanged numbers at the end. I think that's really what we're trying to get at the end, is really to build that message. But it's unfortunate because there are extremists on the Jewish side as well, and on the Arab side, who kind of ruin it for everyone. So with this dialogue that we're creating, with these programs, with this positive message that we're trying to get out, hopefully, I am optimistic that that will happen at some point.
I mean, I think everybody really, if they're Jewish, it's very hard to be a Jewish person in the United States who has never been to Israel or has no feeling connected to Israel because of whatever reasons, to feel any sense of activism, who, as you said, well, why would they on campus? Well, but the minute you actually start either traveling there or speaking with other people or learning more about it, then you do have some connection. I mean, I'm first generation American. My parents are Holocaust survivors, my grandparents Holocaust survivors, and after the Holocaust my parents moved to Israel. My father was a soldier in several of the wars, and then they came to the United States. So how would they keep Israeli culture in our home? I mean, I'm born as an American. So I think that by them speaking the language, by us traveling, and for me there was always a part of my heart that's here as an American, but culturally, religiously, philosophically, and in principle, I do believe, especially through the history of my family, that Israel must exist. And you're right, it's the only democracy in that part of the world. But unfortunately, the amount of momentum, inertia, and incentive on the other side makes it impossible for there to be concerted efforts. But what Brett does is help in that way, at least to arm students. What Becky's doing is she's reconnecting each person with what it means to them on a personal level.
And I'd like to talk briefly about media, to go back. It's really, on campus, what I've noticed is that students are so afraid to espouse pro-Israel views, and a lot of it comes from this role reversal of David and Goliath. Because I really feel, before the Yom Kippur War in 1973, Israel was considered the David, and the Arab world was the Goliath, they were launching a war of extermination against the tiny state of Israel. After Israel came out victorious in that war, the roles reversed. And now we have an entire generation of students who have been taught their entire lives to always root for the underdog, to help the people who
Right.
are being oppressed.
Yeah.
And what they see from the media
And-
is Israel oppressing
I mean,
the Palestinians.
and I was even thinking the students go to their own college bookstores and they see a title called "Peace, Not Apartheid," referring to Israel as the aggressor, written by our own former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter. And how difficult for them to handle this. Here they were trying to, this, I mean, Israel is the only ally in the Middle East, and our own president of the United States, and I think he's had some changes of feelings since he wrote the book, but that title has been out there, and it is very, very negative. And also, when you're talking about media, where the Israelis are not promoting themselves, I think that the Palestinian press is excellent when it comes to getting their message out. Where I have invited the Consul General of Israel to come on the show, and we have not been able to find her here yet. So why isn't Israel, like you said, and I'm glad you guys are out here talking about it, but it isn't just educating the Jewish people. I mean, when we talk about going to Israel, there's so many Christian people that do go to Israel.
I do
but why
think-
don't we have more? Yeah.
Two responses. One, in
A
regards to
response
that,
here, yes.
in regards to that title, "Peace, Not Apartheid," that just hits me so hard because I grew up in South Africa from age 1 to 8 during the apartheid. So to have Israel equated to the apartheid for me is just sickening. That is not apartheid. Israel is the only democratic state in the Middle East. Is as fair as any place I've ever, Israel does not need to apologize for defending herself. And that's why, in response to what you were saying before, about why aren't we in the media as much, unfortunately, we have to defend ourselves more and spend less time on the media. And I want to say the extremists again in the Palestinian community have done a good job with the media, as we've seen. And so, but we're not putting our money there. We really stand behind what we do, and we don't feel that we need to defend ourselves all the time, because
It isn't defending.
what we're doing
yeah.
is right.
I think it isn't. No. Media is not for defending oneself. Media is to get the message out there and tell other people. The Jewish people
Right.
know, but the other people don't know.
That's
People
what we're
from
doing
all
through all the
different-
organizations. There's
But
so
media,
many.
but the media gets things out. Like right now, we're going to be on the air. Next month we're going to be 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. People put these programs on YouTube. It's the message is getting out there, and we're trying to get the message out not just to Jewish people, not just to Israel people, not to people like yourself, but to people, students from all religions, all race and
I
creeds.
think the message is really getting out there. You'd be surprised. When I first started working with the American Zionist movement, I wasn't sure, how people would feel about it, what kind of response I got, and really, it's been overwhelming, especially with this campaign. People want to talk about it. They're excited about it. They're very proud about it. So it's a really exciting thing, and I think there's a whole new wave, especially with Birthright Israel and people going. It's different when you talk about something, you actually go somewhere. That's how I got connected to Israel and to Judaism, by studying in Israel and actually being there and seeing it for myself.
I'd love to talk about this more, and my directors are giving me a minute to wrap up. How does one wrap up all this? All I can say is I want to thank you, Becky and Brett and Karen. You guys are out there, and you're the people that are going to bring these messages out there. It's you. You're the younger generation, and you're there for the people, not just for the Jewish people, but for all people, so they can understand a positive messages that we are not getting, and the people need to hear it. And I'm so proud of each of you for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.